Hi VSP viewers, welcome to our first ever video interview of Vancouver Student Voices. Today we have a very special guest with us, so let's go make sure to check that out. So thank you for joining us today, Joyce.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so to start things off, if you could please give a brief introduction of yourself to the VSP viewers.
Okay, sure. So my name is Joyce, like Sean mentioned. I'm a grade 12 student at Little Flower Academy in Vancouver right now. Next year, I think I'm most likely headed off to Harvard to study government and maybe something else. I'm not quite sure yet. In terms of things that I do, I wouldn't say that I'm a particularly interesting person, but I do know that I'm interested in a lot of things. And so that extends to debate, public speaking, Model UN. I've done some research in high school. I did some sports. But overall, yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Joyce has also successfully made it into not one, but 4 Ivy League schools, which are Harvard, Columbia, Yale, and UPenn. Again, congratulations. You must be very, very happy. So today, we're just going to briefly go over the experience you had during the application process and answer any potential questions that other students may have for you. So to start off, I think a lot of students are probably going to be wondering, what was your initial reaction to getting into all these Ivy League schools?
Yeah, sure. So I think like a lot of students, I spent a lot of high school watching other people's reaction videos. And so I was really expecting, your family dog pile of hugs and smiles. It wasn't really like that for me. I think when I opened my decisions, it was more shock than anything. But then I guess after that, euphoria really did kick in. I'll never forget the car ride down to the beach that my friend Amanda and I made after we opened all the decisions. She was rapping super bass as we went down Marine Drive. It was really, really fun. And then when I got home, I guess I felt more gratitude than anything. I was very happy that I was able to make both myself and my parents proud. But I think regardless of whatever school I had gotten into, I would have felt the same.
Yeah, I can imagine the excitement afterwards, the hard decisions come after. Yeah, so could you describe the application process for students who may not be familiar with the process specific for Ivy League schools or US schools in particular?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because it's something that I was really wondering about when I was in your position last year, Sean. I think to break it down really quickly, in around August, right before you start senior year, what's called the Common Application will open, and that's where you input all your grades, all your information about your school, your test scores, etc. And in addition to where you write your personal statement, which is a 650-word essay that's supposed to encapsulate who you are. That Common App essay and that Common App information gets sent to every single school you apply to, with the exception of UC schools in the US. And then in addition to your Common App, you also have supplemental essays for each school. So I know for Harvard, I had one long supplemental essay and then a couple short ones. For Yale, it was 5 short ones and then 2 long ones. It'll vary between schools, but yeah, you typically have a couple for each. And then in addition to supplemental essays, you also typically get invited to an alumni interview if there are people available to interview you. So I did end up having to do quite a few interviews, but they are pretty casual conversations just for the school to know a little bit more about you. That's probably it for most US school application processes. I think another thing to touch on might be early decision and early action programs. So some people get to hear back in December and know where they're going in December, and that's because they applied to a school either early decision or early action. So that means that instead of submitting your applications all on around January 1st, you submit one school to, I think mine was November 1st, and then you hear back in December. And the difference between the two is early action is not binding, but early decision is. So if you get into a school like Penn or Columbia ED, then you're not allowed to apply anywhere else. Early action is different. You can apply different places. So I think Harvard and Yale, Princeton didn't have EA, but Harvard and Yale do practice early action as does Stanford. But yeah.
So you did early action then for some schools?
I did early decision. I ED'd Columbia, but I got deferred, so that meant to apply to the RD schools as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's like a very long process. I think a lot of grade 12 suffer through that, so I think it's an important thing for people to learn about. So recently with COVID-19, like many schools have made tests optional. So, and some students still think that not taking the test is going to put them at some kind of disadvantage. Anything you might have learned during the process, either from your friends or from personal experience, that you might find helpful for students who might be wondering this?
Yeah, sure. I think a main piece of advice I'd give to anyone, especially those who are coming into senior year next year, schools are going to consider your scores within context. So please do not go out and take your SATs. It's going to come at a personal risk to you. I don't think it's worth it personally. I know a lot of people who got in test optional. I don't think it'll harm your application. So if you can't find a way to take a standardized test, don't worry about it. In terms of advice, though, I think there are a lot of different ways to demonstrate academic curiosity that a lot of people aren't aware of. So it's not just taking the APs that are available at your school or taking the SAT. It can also come from self-studying courses like I did. It can come through inquiry via your extracurriculars. So that might look like research or an extracurricular that you might be familiar with, Sean, Model UN and debate. Or it might look like taking free courses online. I think there are a lot of ways to enhance your learning that COVID-19 made possible. So I think you just have to look for those opportunities when they aren't available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of students are probably wondering in terms of like testing as well, because there's a lot of different types of tests that people can take, like SAT, ACT, APs. What was your experience, would you say, with like those tests?
Yeah, okay. The period where I was studying for my SAT was not great. I remember my SAT got canceled like 5 times. So I was supposed to take it in March of 2020. And fun fact, I actually skipped the last day of normal school ever to go study for a SAT that didn't happen, but that's unrelated. I did end up taking my SAT. I took it twice, once in August and once in October. I took 5 APs, but 4 of those were self-studied, and I am taking 3 this year. I'm not sure what else to say. I never studied.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's good. I think that was just trying to help more students understand what like the academic or like test focus for like students who got into Ivy Leagues were. In terms of the application, what do you think, would you say was like your strongest component?
Sure. Honestly, I'm not an admissions officer, so I don't know for certain.
Yeah.
But I do know that there are a lot of amazing kids in Vancouver who are equally as deserving of a spot at these schools as I am. So, like in terms of grades, in terms of extracurriculars, academics, etc. Given that, then I'd like to think that it was the reflection of myself that I chose to portray to admissions officers. I'm pretty proud of my essays. I thought they were just an honest portrayal of who I am and what I value. I put a lot of thought into them, and for all the students who are going into application season this upcoming year, I definitely say seek help when you can. So I reached out to a lot of older students to ask for advice, to ask for feedback, and if you ever want to contact me, I'm happy to do that as well. I'd like to pay it forward. But yeah, I'd say I don't know, honestly, what part of my application stood out. I'd like to think that they were my essays, but I don't have a sort of answer.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think a lot of the times those essays or those writing portions are where you can show most of yourself, like in the purest form. Yeah. So obviously getting into these schools is not an easy task. How do you think, or would you have any tips for students in managing their time to cover a lot of ground?
Honestly, Sean, I might not be the best person to ask. I think high school was made up of a lot of late nights and early mornings. But I think the most valuable takeaway I've gotten, especially from junior year, was learning to prioritize my tasks and knowing that sometimes failure is just inevitable. So that might mean choosing to go to bed early instead of studying for the physics test the next day. Sometimes you just have to take the L. It happens sometimes, but knowing how to move forward, I think, is more important.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I think I need that right now. So yeah, that definitely helps. Do you have any specific plans for the future now that you're pursuing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, no. I think I'd like to major in government, but we'll see where the future takes me. I'm not sure if I want to go to grad school. I'm not sure what field I want to break into, but I'm excited to see.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times once we go into university, like people drastically do different things than they assume to do. Yeah. I mean, you'll be fine regardless, regardless of what major you go into. So
thanks, Sean.
Yeah. So I think to end things off, would you have any tips for students who may be thinking of applying to some Ivy League schools or other competitive schools out there in the future?
Yeah. I think the main piece of advice I'd want to pass on is that so much of the application process is just mental. So I remember semester 1 of senior year being probably one of the hardest periods of my life, just because I felt really alone and really stressed all the time. So I'd honestly just say, it's okay to take breaks sometimes. It's okay to step away from your essay doc. You're going to want to compare yourself to your friends, but don't do that. You guys are different applicants with different strengths. It's not worth putting your friendships on the line for an admissions letter, especially one that you have no control over. Just please trust that everything will be okay, even if you face rejection, even if you're very worried about where you'll end up, things will turn out fine. In terms of more concrete advice, though, I think don't be afraid to ask for help and be proactive about asking for help. So whether that means reaching out to students who already go to these schools, whether that means emailing your AO questions. I know some of my friends did that. It means looking on YouTube for resources. Just, you have more control over how your admissions process is going to go than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, I am very, very certain whoever you are, you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was pretty abstract advice, but it's definitely advice that I would have liked to hear, especially in December when I got deferred. I really did think that was the end, but here we are, I guess. So yeah, I guess the last piece of advice, ultimate piece of advice, would just be everything is going to turn out fine. Just trust me.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Right before, I mean, that's really good advice for a lot of people to have. I'm just gonna ask if you have any fun memories, or in terms of your extracurriculars or outside activities that you did outside of school that you think were memorable, or just something you might want to share at the end if there's any.
Fun memories? Yeah, honestly, I think this is a really great question, because I remember all throughout high school and especially in the later years, I was so focused on wanting to succeed that sometimes I forgot to enjoy the moment, and I forgot to recognize the fact that I would never have certain moments back once they passed. And I don't think that these types of moments are anything monumental. They're like walking downtown at night with my friends at Model UN conferences. They're like really funny conversations in between debate rounds that I have with my friends. They're sunset drives and sunset walks and bubble tea runs. There's so much of high school that I would like to relive, so many special moments that I didn't realize were special until afterward. So yeah, those are probably some of my best.
I think a lot of people could relate to a lot of those experiences. Enjoying those moments. Okay. Thank you again so much for agreeing to the interview and for being here and answering all of these questions. Congratulations again. Hopefully you'll decide which school you're going to very soon. I mean, I'm sure you'll do great things in the future, so all the best for you.
Thanks so much, Sean.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sean. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Hey VSP viewers,
thank you for staying till the very end. We really hope that you guys enjoyed it.
please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more videos in the future.
That's all for today. For students, by students.
See you next time.